Hey guys, it's Moody here, and I am feeling a lot better from my wisdom teeth thing, and I might look kind of swollen, which would suck, but that's why my face might look swollen, because it's only day like 3 and I'm still in somewhat pain, but it'll be okay. I managed to make it out to the premiere event in New York at King's Games, and it's like 3 minutes from my house, so it wasn't far at all, and I had a lot of fun. So I decided to save every one of my matches from then and kind of like go over how the day went, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So the first round that I had, I figured the Pokemon that I brought were alright against the guy that I was going up against with. I figured the lead with, Charizard and Heliolisk was going to be okay. At least I believe that's what I led off with, because his entire team was Venusaur, Gyarados, Mawile, Garchomp, Hydreigon, and H-Slash. So I figured Charizard and Heliolisk was a pretty good lead against, pretty much all of those Pokemon. So I felt pretty confident in what I led off with. And then he just whatever intimidates me. It's not really a big deal. So I figured he, I guess, might want to switch out because he's fearing the electric type attack here and go into, I guess, Hydreigon or whatever else to resist it. But I also figured he was going to want to Rock Slide with Garchomp, so I also switched out into Scrafty so I get the Intimidate off on the Garchomp, and potentially the Gyarados if he decided to stay in, which would kind of be irrelevant at that point since he would have, I guess, died from like a, Volt Switch if anything. But I figured the bigger threat here was going to be the Garchomp, so I just went for the Hidden Power. And then I ended up going for the Fake Out here on the Hydreigon, and I figured since he saw the Hidden Power, he might want to switch out here, and that's why I went for the Volt Switch. And honestly, it was one of the biggest mistakes that I did make this match, and honestly might have, cost me just doing it. I should have just gone for the Hidden Power Ice, obviously, but I end up losing my Heliolisk here, and it doesn't work out too well. So now I figure the second thing that I could send out to deal with this thing is Gardevoir. And right before I ended up putting my Pokemon down on paper, I ended up switching Thunderbolt to Dazzling Gleam just because I already had Electric type attack on my team. I figured Dazzling Gleam might be better. And in this scenario, it wasn't even that bad. So I did decide to lock myself into Dazzling Gleam here, I believe. And he goes for the he goes for the thing and gets a crit, which any extra damage really does matter, but this is where I go for the Dazzling Gleam. I get enough to KO the Hydreigon, which is great, and then I also get some chip damage on the Gyarados, and the Gyarados really doesn't intimidate me at all at this point. I kind of just end up Drain Punching the Gyarados here for damage. I really don't get much HP back, so it's really kind of irrelevant, and then he ends up sending out his Venusaur, and this is where I'm like, alright, I have to call back Gardevoir because I want to save it just in case I need to, Psychic Kick or whatever, and I'm gonna go into Charizard here in case he just decides to go for a Sledge Bomb or maybe put me to sleep, I guess. Honestly, what really wasn't the best play when I was doing it. The first couple matches I was so nervous because I haven't gone into anything like tournament-like in a while, so I was extremely nervous and I was shaking and honestly probably not making as good plays as I could, but he went for the Sledge Bomb. It does about half. It honestly, if he double attacked me, it would take me out, but it's also on that border of being min-max damage, so I don't know. Either way, I end up Mega Evolving here. I figured he was going to want to Sludge Bomb the Charizard again, hoping to kill it, and then go for the Waterfall or whatever on the Scrafty to kill it. And I figured if there's that slight chance where I can live, then I'm going to take it and hope that it works. But he ends up going for the Waterfall on the Charizard. I end up living, and he goes for the Sledge Bomb to take out the Scrafty, which I was perfectly fine with. Here, I'm like, this is my area, this is my hole to take out the Venusaur, and I went for the Overheat, and it missed. So, really huge thing, pretty much, cost me the game, because if Venusaur would have been gone, I wouldn't have had to worry with Gardevoir at all. He would have sent out, I think he had Garchomp left. I outspeed with Dazzling Gleam or Moonblast, and Gyarados really isn't a big deal at all because it's already intimidated. So honestly, having the Venusaur out of the way would have made this game a whole lot different, and it's really unfortunate that 10% chance just had to happen to where the game really did not go in my favor, and then I ended up kind of doing a bit worse later on because I was really discouraged from it. I'm like, I'm already going in the next couple games with a 0-1, and I really wasn't too happy or too confident about it at all. But yeah, that miss on the Venusaur really made a huge difference in this game, and I wasn't happy about it at all for obvious reasons. But really, the Gyarados wasn't that big of a deal. It was intimidated. It was going for waterfalls in the sun. The most it could do is paralyze me, so I wasn't really too concerned with it that game. So I really felt like if I hadn't gotten the overheat miss, I would have been alright. So moving on to Game 2. Game 2, honestly, I was already technically like going up against... the way the brackets work is you go up against other people that end up in the same, win-loss percentage as you, usually. So here I ended up leading with Gardevoir and Scrafty. I saw that he had a lot of physical attackers on his team, so... because he had Tyranitar, Garchomp, Charizard, Tyrantrum, Blastoise, and Ferrothorn. So almost half his team could have been considered physical attackers, so I felt like leading off with Scrafty is also great, as well as him being weak with Ferro, Tyrantrum, and T-Tar to fighting type attacks. And then I figured Gardevoir could fill the space in which I could just get good damage off with like Moonblast and whatever. So first turn I ended up taking out the Tyrantrum, and I really don't know what Tyrantrum was going to end up doing anyway because he just ended up dying in one hit. So not the Charizard, but the Tyranitar ended up protecting, which kind of just wasted a turn. It was pretty irrelevant. And now he goes into Charizard here, and I ended up switching back Gardevoir because I am locked into Moonblast because I am a Choice Scarf Gardevoir. So I end up sending in my Charizard, I guess in case he wanted to end up Mega Evolving and going for Heat Wave or whatever, but he didn't Mega Evolve here, so here I was kind of confused as to what his Mega actually was because I really thought it was going to be Charizard at that point. And then he also goes for the Fire Blast on Tyranitar. So I really think maybe he forgot to Mega Evolve here because later in the game he does end up Mega Evolving, so maybe he forgot this turn. But here he has a Focus Sash and it ends up being kind of irrelevant, but because the Tyranitar really isn't doing a lot to anything, so it doesn't really matter. Either way, now I am kind of scared of him going for Rock Slides, but at the same time, like if I lose Charizard, to me, it's really not the biggest deal right now. Like, he has Blastoise, I'm like, I have other things that I could take care of it. So here I end up Mega Evolving so I can get the Sun Boost, and I don't have to worry about residual damage from Sandstorm. And so we ended up getting Drought here, and I ended up going for the Heat Wave just to attack both Pokemon, and if for some reason he stayed in, it would get some damage off on the Charizard, as well as take out the Tyranitar here, because I assumed I would outspeed, because he's clearly not Choice Scarf, so I wasn't really worried too much about the Rock Slide here. And then I ended up going for the Crunch on the Blastoise. Originally it was going to be on the Charizard, but once again, just getting as much damage off on things as I could. The burn really didn't matter. The residual damage really didn't matter, because no matter what, Blastoise wasn't going to end up outspeeding anything else that I had on the field right now, and he would have ended up dying to any other attack that I had, so... pretty much Blastoise was just sitting there to be fodder regardless if he got the burn or not. So he just goes for the Solar Beam here, surprisingly on the Scrafty instead of going for Heat Wave or whatever else, where he could have gotten the boost and done more because they're both neutral. So here I just went for the Heat Wave knowing that it would kill the Blastoise and do some chip damage to the Charizard, which is probably my biggest problem right now. Right here is where I kind of wish I had the Thunderbolt on the Gardevoir. It would have helped me out a bit more, but I just go for the Crunch. I get some extra damage off on it, and then here I Protect, assuming that he was going to want to attack me with the Solar Beam again, because that's what he's been doing. It's a bit weird. Didn't really make sense when he could have just been going for Heat Waves unless he didn't have Heat Wave, but I went for the Solar Beam here, kind of hoping that it would just end up killing it at that range, and I didn't want to risk a miss or anything. Not that it really mattered much at this point. And then here I was kind of being the, one of those dick players who just kind of wants to sustain like the 4-0, and I ended up switching out and going into my Gardevoir. And then Chasing Drought is useless. He goes for the Solar Beam again. It's Still really, really weird that he hasn't gone for a fire type attack yet, even though he's in the sun, but it's alright. Gardevoir really takes it alright. And then I figured here I'll kill him with an overheat, but it misses. And then here I'm like, finally, take you out with a Moonblast and don't have to deal with it. It really shouldn't have been that difficult to take out this Charizard, but as you can tell, wasn't really one of the more experienced players. He told me that was his first time, so, you know, it's like a learning experience. So that was that battle. And then, so at this point, my record's obviously 1-1, and then we move on to this third match, which his team was Pachirisu, Azumarill, Charizard, Gardevoir, Salamence, and Gothitelle. I felt like Gothitelle might be a problem, but I figured given most of the leads here that I saw, Charizard would be a good lead because it would have been able to take care of Gardevoir, would have been able to take care of Gothitelle, would have been able to do some damage to Azumarill, and so would Heliolisk in case. The thing that I was worried about was Pachirisu, and this is where I assumed that he was going to send out Pachirisu. So that's why I decided to just attack that slot. I figured he wasn't gonna want to leave that Pokemon in that slot, and that's why I figured I'm just going for the all-out attack, getting it out of the way, because I really don't want to deal with the Follow Me, the Volt Absorb, the whatever else he's got. And I was obviously unaware that his Charizard was going to be X, and that was ultimately the downfall of my game here. And that's why sometimes, this is where I kind of reflected on the whole Swiss rounds versus best 2 of 3. Best 2 of 3 is kind of like you get to actually assess your opponent's team and your Pokemon, and then go into like game 2 and 3 and still come back from, you know, that first game. Because if you get enough information that first game, you can definitely end up coming back later on in the other 2 rounds. And as opposed to Swiss, you're kind of like, you can use gimmicks. And I kind of consider Charizard to be one of those things where once you find out that it's Charizard X in the other 2 games, it's so easy to beat. And if you really, it goes for a lot of Pokemon, but one of the Pokemon that it goes for the most is Charizard, because it does have the surprise factor of being either X or Y, and once you find out it's X, ultimately you have other ways of dealing with it. But unfortunately here, I really didn't, because I didn't know it was X, and I honestly ended up playing really, really poorly here, and then I really don't know. It might have been partially of me being nervous, but I just I kind of went for overheat here, hoping it would kill. I'm like, at this point, I kind of don't have a lot to lose, because Charizard's already at +1. I don't have much else to deal with it. I don't think anything that I would have brought on my team would have really helped much. Maybe if I had an Intimidate off on Scrafty or something. But here it goes for Dragon Claw, kills my Heliolisk, and then the one other really bad misplay that I made was not going for King Shield here. This next turn, I kind of assumed that he would have assumed that I would have gone for King Shield and avoided that slot, and instead went for the other slot with the Charizard to not get the minus whatever attack if I did go for King Shield. But I ended up making that misplay, and you know, that's what happens in the game sometimes. It really didn't matter at that point because I already lost 2 of my other Pokemon, and then at this point I'm already down literally all my team just because of this one Pokemon, and it wasn't a nice loss, but obviously it helps you reflect on, you know, your moves, your gameplay, your everything else. So it wasn't really the best game that I had, but I'm right now, I think, at a 1-2. So not feeling too confident, but then they have the break. You end up going out to get lunch, and then you come back, and then you just you resume the whole the whole other round, and it's 6 rounds total. So, and then we move on to the next person, who ended up having. He had Mega Heracross, Bisharp, Talonflame, Rotomage, Meowstic, and Gardevoir. Now, the one thing that I was really hesitant to bring, because I saw that he had Bisharp, was obviously Scrafty, because I didn't want to give him that boost. But once again, I figured that Charizard, Heliolisk would have been a good lead. Against Heracross it works, against Bisharp it worked, against Talonflame Not so much, but I was kind of hoping to play around it by bringing, Aegislash. I think I brought Aegislash. Meowstic was kind of iffy. It's like one of those really annoying things you just want to get out of the way in the beginning of the game. And then Gardevoir, I wasn't really scared of because I did have Charizard if I wanted to take care of it in any other way. So I knew Meowstic was probably going to end up Thunder Waving the Charizard because obviously that's the only thing he could Thunder Wave on the field. And there wasn't really anything else that I really saw him going for. So I assumed that the one thing I do want to do right now is just go for an overheat to get this thing out of the way. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't mind getting the -2 as long as it took this thing out and I didn't get para-haxed and I didn't have to deal with any more para, confusion, anything else that it might carry. So now he goes into Bisharp, which this is the one thing that I was scared he was going to bring, and then granted, I could go for the overheat, but here I ended up going into Garchomp, kind of hoping that he would go for a physical attack and then end up taking Rocky Helmet damage along with Rough Skin. And luckily the the Volt Switch took down the Bisharp enough to where I can do that because he is going to end up attacking that slot with a, I think it was a Night Slash, and then I also ended up going into Charizard here, assuming that he was going to go for what? I already missed Willow or something, whatever. But either way, the Rough Skin Rocky Helmet did take out the Bisharp, which I was ecstatic about. I was so happy about that because I really didn't want to deal with it. And then he ends up going into Heracross here, which obviously is weak to a lot of the things that I have on the field right now. So obviously he's Mega. There's really no other Mega that he could have on his team. And then the obvious attack for me to go for right now would have been the Rock Slide. And if I get a flinch, I mean, it's alright. It's just a bonus, but it really didn't matter if I did or didn't. I was trying to get enough damage off on the Rotom and the Heracross. And I knew it was going to Rock Blast me here, but really I didn't want to switch out into anything else to take it. So I figured I could just take the Rock Slide damage and then switch something else in safely and then not have to worry about it. I really wasn't expecting the Hidden Power from the Rotom, though. That one kind of caught me off guard. I really didn't know that they started carrying Hidden Power now, but I guess I do know that now. So the last two Pokemon that I do end up having are Gardevoir and, let's see if I remember, Gardevoir and Heliolisk. So I feel really confident with the last two Pokemon I have left because I just outspeed everything with Gardevoir, and I'm alright with locking myself into Moonblast as long as it takes out the Heracross. So I protect here, assuming he wanted to go for the Heliolisk with the Heracross just in case, and or in case he wanted to overheat the Heliolisk. And here I assumed overheat is fine. The thing is, my concern was keeping Heliolisk around. If he overheated the Gardevoir, that was good. At least he got the -2, and even in the sun, the overheat wouldn't be able to kill the Heliolisk. He gets some Life Orb damage, and I know that I can outspeed him and kill him with a Hyper Beam? So yeah, now he protects, and now I know that even though the sun does go away, it just makes his overheat even less powerful, so I'm really not worried about this game at all unless I miss drastically. But I ended up going for Hyper Beam to win the game, so I ended up winning that one. That one wasn't as nerve-wracking. I was really comfortable playing that one and pretty comfortable in my choices in attacks and whatnot, so I was happy about that. It was, you know, relatively hacks-free. I enjoyed it, so that's great. And then moving on to the next game, this guy ended up having a lot of physical attackers, and here he had Talonflame, Garchomp, Kanga, Mawile, Slowbro, and Rotom Wash. So the only two Pokemon that weren't physical attackers were Slowbro and Rotom Wash. So obviously I was going to lead off with my Scrafty, hoping I can get an Intimidate off on either one of his physical leads. Happened to be a Talonflame, which I'm pretty happy about, so he leads off Talonflame and Rotom. I assumed he was going to Brave Bird the Scrafty, so I ended up switching out into Aegislash here, and I Mega'd with Charizard, kind of hoping that I could probably just go for, I think it was Solar Beam on the Rotom, because I couldn't do anything to the Rotom there other than Solar Beam or anything to the Talonflame. So that didn't quite work out because he ended up going for Tailwind. And obviously I'm in a really bad spot now because everything outspeeds, Rotom outspeeds. Obviously Talonflame already outspeeds because it's pretty you know, pretty fast Pokemon, so that's irrelevant. But the Rotom is the main thing that's going to give me a problem right now. So, how to deal with this. I knew it was going to Thunderbolt me. I knew I'd live because I do have a bulky set. And here I kind of, I went for Heat Wave, hoping to get some damage off on the Talonflame, hoping to get some damage off on the Rotom. And here I ended up protecting, hoping that he would want to attack the Charizard again. And at the same time, I was also trying to wither away the Tailwind turns. He ends up going for Swagger on the Rotom, and I'm like, this is the game we're playing. People now run Swagger on their Rotoms, and I was not too pleased about that because here I go into my form, I'm like, I knew it, just at least get the attack off, the Shadow Ball I get off, and then I get some damage off on the Rotom. Obviously it's not enough to kill, and then Sit just kicks in just to kind of make it a bit more salt in the wounds, but it's, at least I know what item it had and that I could take it out. And here I knew that I had to either go for the double protect or let Charizard die. There was no other option for me to go for. I had to. And I don't know why he double attacked the Charizard in this case. He probably assumed I was going to King Shield, and that is exactly why I didn't King Shield. Thank goodness I broke out of the confusion that turn and killed the Talonflame, because that was a huge thing for me to do. And then Tailwind ends up pewtering out at the same time, which just further puts me at an advantage. And here I decide to take out the Aegislash and then put in the Scrafty just to get the Intimidate off. And if Kanga is going to outspeed me and fake out the Charizard, I'm alright with that. And if the Rotom wants to Will-O-Wisp me, I'm alright with that as well, because I do have a Lumberry. So that's, like, that whole situation is fine with me. He ends up faking out the Charizard, which actually I ended up living. I was surprised with myself. I really didn't think I could live that, and Charizard was going to end up dying there, but surprised me, and it worked out for the best. He ends up going for the Will-O-Wisp on the Scrafties, I assume, but it ends up taking the Lumberry, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And now Sun goes away, so obviously I'm at a disadvantage again, but here I kind of thought I was going to be sacrificing Charizard anyway. That's why I ended up going for an Overheat here. I figured I'm already about to die, might as well go for the Overheat for damage, and he protects with the Rotom, which is irrelevant. But here I ended up going for the fake out on the Rotom, hoping that I could fake out the Rotom and just attack the Kanga and hopefully end up working that situation out. But it didn't quite work out that way. I ended up switching in the Aegislash here, saving the Charizard so I can keep the Sun around. I felt like the Sun now was important. I really wasn't keeping track of Sun turns, which I really should have been. But he goes for the Dragon Claw. It really doesn't do a lot on Aegislash. I assume now that he was going to go for the Earthquake here, just to get as much damage on Aegislash as he could. One thing I do regret about Aegislash is not giving it weakness policy, though. Leftovers I only kept on it because I decided to put Substitute on it, which I really didn't find much use for today, or just in general. I probably should have kept the weakness policy, but that's just hindsight. And he ends up going for the Earthquake. It doesn't take me out. It does a good amount of damage to where a second one is going to kill, and he goes for the Swagger on the Aegislash again because it's really weird. He didn't really, I guess, think of Scrafty as an immediate threat then. But now I ended up going into my other form, and I was going to attack the Rotom, trying to get it out with the Shadow Ball. But honestly, me getting hit in confusion only further put me in a better spot now. Because what happens now is the Sun is up, I can send out my Heliolisk, and the Heliolisk is going to outspeed the Garchomp. So if the Garchomp wanted to go for whatever attack and kill off the Charizard, he couldn't. Garchomp is dead. So that situation ended up working itself out a lot in my favor, and then I ended up going for a Solar Beam onto the Rotom just to take it out. So I was actually really happy that the Aegislash got hit by confusion. And if it didn't, then I would have ended up taking out the Rotom either way. But still, the Garchomp might have been a bit problematic, and I wouldn't have Charizard now had it not been for the Aegislash dying there. I was kind of happy that that happened. So now his last Pokemon is Kanga. So here I'm just going to end up going for the Overheat and the Hyper Beam. If he decided to fake one thing out, that's really what would happen. And I knew Hyper Beam and Overheat could both take it out in one hit. So that was Game 5, and at this point I am running I think a 3-2 ratio. So at this point there's still a chance for me to make top 8. Not a very high one, but there are a couple 4 and 2s that could make top 8. So this next game was pretty important to me, just either making top 8 or top 16 to get, you know, championship points, really. And this last game was the best game that I did have this entire day. It was really intense. So the guy had Aegislash, Tyranitar, Charizard, Garchomp, Mammo, and Ludicolo. I felt like Ludicolo was definitely not something he's bringing. He only might have brought that just for rain teams. Mamoswine was iffy, but if you brought Mamoswine, Tyranitar, Charizard, not Charizard, but I felt like, especially for the Tyranitar and potentially Mammo, the Scrafty would have been really, really good. And Mammo and Tyranitar and potentially Aegislash, I could hit super effectively with both my stabs as well. So I felt like leading off with Scrafty Gardevoir is good. Gardevoir could outspeed anything, and this is another situation where I kind of wish that I had the Thunderbolt, because really, right now, Gardevoir can't do much to either one of these, and he ends up double protecting first turn, probably assuming that I might fake out the Charizard or the Aegislash or, you know, whatever. So here I decide to lock myself into Psychic and attack the Charizard because I really couldn't do much to the Aegislash. So here I thought that he might go for a Shadow Ball, so I went into my Heliolisk on the off chance that he did. He ended up missing Heat Wave on the Scrafty, which somewhat hacks, but I know that I am especially bulky, so I could definitely take that. Heliolisk ends up taking that, not as well as I hope, but I'm still kind of hanging on there, and he surprised me with Sacred Sword, so I take a lot of super effective damage. I take Solar Power with Heliolisk, and then here I assumed he was going to double protect with both of his Pokemon to try and hope that this one turn of Solar Power is going to kill off my Heliolisk, because other than that, it poses an immediate threat to the Charizard. So, because he saw the Volt Switch especially, I assumed that he was going to switch out his Charizard here and end up going for, I went for the Crunch stupidly, honestly. The Crunch on the Aegislash was really stupid and careless because he obviously was going to King Shield, but I'm like, on the off chance that he doesn't. But here he switches out Garchomp, and this is where I'm like, I have to go for the Hyper Beam, kind of like as a last suicide attempt, because he knows that I do carry Volt Switch. Either way, I'm dying, so I might as well go for the Hyper Beam and hope that I land it, because I really thought that he wanted to save Charizard and switch here, and that's why he went into Garchomp, and that prediction really did help me out a lot. Heliolisk died, but not in vain. He at least took out a Garchomp, and that Garchomp would have otherwise given me problems. So now he has an Aegislash. He's going to end up probably, he goes for the Sacred Sword on me, but I assumed since I'm going to die, I might as well protect myself and not take damage, because Scrafty might be extremely useful later on, because I've only seen 3 of his Pokemon right now. His last one might be another physical threat, so just in case. Just in case I'm keeping it around, just in case I need the Intimidate or the Drain Punch support. So I ended up going to Gardevoir here. Trace is kind of useless in this scenario, and he ends up, I end up megaing up with my Charizard here. And he goes for the stance change with Aegislash here. It ends up becoming extremely predictable to where he is and isn't going to King Shield, but here I went for the Heat Wave because the other attacks I really had weren't going to help me at all. So luckily I took his Heat Wave well enough to be able to fire back with my own and get some damage on Charizard, and then I was kind of forced to attack with Gardevoir and I think go for the Charizard here as he switches out Aegislash. He ends up switching out Aegislash and going into Tyranitar here, probably because, I mean, it takes away the sun, but it also takes away from his Pokemon, so it's kind of weird that he's running both. But either way, I had to go for the Moonblast on Charizard, take out the Charizard. Otherwise, it would have taken out my Gardevoir, and, you know, I get a bit of damage there. So, he avoids the Heat Wave too, which, it's a Tyranitar in the sand, so it really didn't mean that much. So, hacks happens, it didn't mean that much, so he goes in and goes for the Rock Slide. Here I thought I was going to be outspeeding. I could go for an Overheat. I could do a lot of damage and take out the Aegislash, but I didn't. He ends up outspeeding and locks himself into Rock Slide. And here I thought I had lost a game, but he also puts his Aegislash out into his Blade form, which puts me in a spot where I know he's choiced into Rock Slide. I get an Intimidate off on top of that. I know his Aegislash isn't going to King Shield. I know he's going to go for a Rock Slide. That's the only thing he can do, and I'm resisted that. He has to go for the Sacred Sword, and this is where I went for the crunch on the Aegislash. I was so happy that I didn't get a flinch there, and I end up taking out the Aegislash, which makes this game so much closer right now. However, I still am scared of the residual damage I'm taking from Sand, as well as the potential for Rock Slide flinches. And this is where the Rock Slide flinches start happening. And I get one, and then I get a flinch, and then I get hit by the Sand, and I'm like, I could probably only take one more. Okay, we can get a Drain Punch off here and take him out, right? I get hit again. I get brought down to 17. Thank goodness that the Sand goes away this turn, too, so I don't have to take it. But this is where I am like, thank goodness the Rock Slide pays off. He misses. I kill him. I get the win. I walk away with a 4-2. I was extremely happy about that. This was like a pretty good way for me to end the day. It was really stressful at the end, but it was a really good battle, and I enjoyed playing it. So, you know, it's fun to reflect. Even though I didn't make top 8, I made, I think, 12th. They ranked me out of about 40 people that came that day, so it wasn't too bad. I'm pretty happy. It was a pretty average score, and I'm just kind of going there just to get practice and get better. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It was pretty lengthy, and I'm starting to lose my voice, but I did what I could, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And obviously, you can critique all my mistakes. I realize I did make a lot of mistakes. I didn't exactly practice as well as I did hope, and you know, it was very nerve-wracking at the beginning because I wasn't quite used to still playing in tournaments and in person. So there's that, but I love you guys very, very much, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and bye.